Did you know that as of 2025, over 10 countries have either banned or severely restricted British immigrants? That's right. In a stunning twist no one saw coming, nations around the globe are shutting their doors to UK citizens. Some say it's political payback. Others say it's just the start of something much bigger. But here's the real shocker. One of these countries had millions of British tourists just last year. And now, total visa freeze. Why would so many countries suddenly turn their backs on Britain? Well, it's not just about politics. Some bans are linked to economic tensions, collapsed trade deals, or even revenge over diplomatic disputes. Others are fueled by rising nationalism or shifts in global alliances. Whatever the reason, the result is clear. British passports are losing their welcome mat in places they were once celebrated. In this video, we're counting down 10 countries that have just banned British immigrants in 2025. And you'll want to stay until the very end because country number 1 will leave you speechless. Let's just say, if you've ever dreamed of living in Dubai, you might want to reconsider. Get ready because the list may include countries you'd never expect. Number 10. India. India and the UK once shared a deep and complex history. A past marked by colonial rule, conflict, but also cooperation and cultural exchange. Just a few years ago, both countries were actively negotiating what was supposed to be a game-changing trade agreement. But as of 2025, that partnership has unraveled faster than anyone expected. India has now officially banned all new work, student, and long-stay visas for British nationals. A move that's shocked thousands and sent diplomatic shockwaves across continents. What triggered this? Behind the scenes, Indian officials grew increasingly frustrated with what they called the UK's neo-colonial attitude during trade discussions. Negotiators described British demands as dismissive of India's economic priorities and sovereignty. Then came the policy shift from the UK, limiting post-study work options for Indian graduates and tightening visa eligibility. The Indian media branded it targeted discrimination. The breaking point came when a leaked memo from the UK's Department for Business reportedly described Indian negotiators as too emotional to be rational. Within 72 hours, India retaliated with a sweeping freeze on immigration from the UK. Now, British citizens are being denied entry not just for work or study, but also for volunteering, tech residencies, and business fellowships. Programs that once welcomed thousands of Brits annually have vanished overnight without warning. The economic and cultural cost? Massive. Indian universities are bracing for funding hits. British companies are halting their expansion into India. And students with scholarships and contracts in hand are being told, try again next year, maybe. India's message is crystal clear. If respect isn't mutual, cooperation isn't guaranteed. Whether this is a short-term move or the start of a long-term rift, one thing is certain. 2025 marks a turning point in UK-India relations. Number 9. Nigeria. Tensions between the UK and Nigeria have been simmering beneath the surface for years. But in 2025, they finally boiled over. Nigeria has now introduced strict restrictions on British immigrants, suspending work permits, NGO-related visas, and long-term residency applications from UK nationals. This isn't just a policy shift. It's a loud, symbolic statement from Africa's largest democracy. What caused the fallout? It all started with a controversial UK defense deal with a West African rival nation, which Nigeria saw as a betrayal. The UK had pledged support in regional military operations without including Nigerian leadership in the discussion. A move that sparked outrage in Abuja. Then came a UK parliamentary report criticizing corruption in Nigerian government programs, aired publicly without diplomatic consultation. Nigerian officials slammed the report as colonial-style interference, and within weeks, the government moved to reassess bilateral mobility agreements with the UK. The result? Thousands of British NGO workers, oil industry professionals, and dual national families are now caught in bureaucratic limbo. British citizens previously living and working in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt are being asked to leave, or denied visa renewals altogether. Even cultural exchange programs have been quietly suspended. The UK's once vibrant educational presence in Nigeria is shrinking fast. This isn't just diplomatic posturing, it's real lives disrupted. And as nationalism grows on both sides, many wonder whether these immigration restrictions will harden into long-term policy. What do you think? Is Nigeria's move justified? Or is this geopolitical chess gone too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're watching and replying. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, because we're only getting started. The next countries on this list? They're even more surprising. Number 8. Argentina. It started with a flag. In early 2025, during a state ceremony in Buenos Aires, Argentina's newly elected nationalist president raised the country's blue and white flag beside a bold declaration: "The Falklands belong to us, and we will no longer tolerate double standards." Within weeks, British nationals were banned from applying for residency, work permits, and long-term tourist visas in Argentina. The government framed it as a matter of national pride, a necessary correction to years of what they call post-imperial hypocrisy. This wasn't just about immigration, it was about history. The Falklands War may have ended decades ago, but the emotional scars in Argentina never fully healed. And in 2025, that old wound is bleeding again. Britain's decision to boost its military presence on the islands, paired with statements from UK officials reaffirming sovereignty, sparked fierce backlash in South America. Argentina responded not with weapons, but with paperwork. The immigration freeze doesn't affect short-term tourism, at least not yet. But if you're British and you had dreams of moving to Buenos Aires, working remotely from Mendoza, or retiring in Patagonia, forget it. Even more striking, several British-Argentinian dual nationals report difficulties renewing local documentation, suggesting the new restrictions may apply beyond immigration and into citizenship verification. Human rights organizations have raised concerns. Argentina's foreign ministry shrugs them off. To many in the country, this isn't political theater. It's personal. And whether you agree or not, one thing is certain: Argentina is using immigration as a message, one aimed squarely at London. Number 7. Russia. No formal announcement, no press conference, just a quiet update to a government website. In early 2025, Russia expanded its travel blacklist, and UK citizens were on it. British nationals are now barred from obtaining work visas, residence permits, or long-term cultural exchange approvals inside Russia. In effect, any British citizen without Russian family ties is being blocked from entering or staying in the country for more than 30 days. The Kremlin offered no explanation, but they didn't need to. Relations between Russia and the UK have deteriorated steadily over the last 5 years. Sanctions, spy scandals, public accusations, media blackouts, each side accusing the other of propaganda and provocation. But in 2025, things shifted from Cold War to freeze-out. The immediate trigger appears to be the UK's recent crackdown on Russian oligarch assets in London, paired with a high-profile cyber investigation that named Russian state actors in an attempted breach of British defense servers. Russia's response? Silent but strategic. British researchers in Russian universities were abruptly dismissed. Cultural exchange programs were cancelled without explanation, and expat communities in Moscow and St. Petersburg report increasing scrutiny, interviews, surveillance, and legal ambiguity about their right to stay. It's a quiet purge, not loud, but effective. In typical fashion, Russian state media framed the decision as a protective measure against hostile influence. British officials have condemned it as a further step toward isolationism. There's no telling when, or if, these restrictions will be lifted. But for now, one thing is certain. If you're British, Russia isn't just closed off, it's watching. Number 6. South Africa. For years, South Africa was seen as a second home for many British citizens. Expats drawn to Cape Town's coastline, Johannesburg's business hubs, or the wine farms of Stellenbosch. But in 2025, something changed. Quietly but firmly, South Africa has halted all new immigration permits for British nationals, including investor visas, skilled work programs, and long-term family reunification applications. There was no fiery press release, just a change in tone and policy. So why now? Insiders point to rising frustration with what local leaders describe as foreign entitlement. South Africa's government has faced increasing public pressure to address inequality and youth unemployment. And with over 7,000 British nationals moving to South Africa each year, many citizens are now asking, who is this country really for? But there's more. Earlier this year, the UK denied multiple South African students visas for what it called security reasons. The move sparked national outrage and was widely perceived as racially biased. In response, the South African Parliament passed a motion to reassess reciprocal immigration privileges with the UK. The result? New applications from British citizens are now being paused or outright rejected. Even more telling, several British retirees already living in the country are finding it harder to renew their residency permits, and some have been asked to reapply under tighter scrutiny. Is it personal? Not exactly, but it is political and cultural. South Africa is trying to define who gets to stay, who gets to benefit, and who gets a second chance. And right now, the UK isn't at the front of the line. Number 5. Iran. With Iran, the signs were there for months. In early 2025, British nationals began reporting strange delays at Iranian embassies. Tourist visas stalled. Student applications went unacknowledged. And by April, it was official. Iran had suspended all non-essential visas for UK citizens, citing security and sovereignty concerns. Translation? If you're British, you're not welcome, at least for now. This move didn't come out of nowhere. Tensions between Tehran and London have been rising sharply over the past year. The UK's renewed military presence in the Persian Gulf, framed as a stabilization effort, was seen by Iran as direct provocation. And then came the oil sanctions. The UK backed a sweeping EU initiative to block Iranian energy exports, sparking economic retaliation. Tehran called it economic warfare. Within weeks, a hardline faction in the Iranian parliament pushed for tighter border controls against Western nationals, with the UK at the top of the list. The new restrictions don't just affect tourists. British academics, humanitarian workers, and even dual nationals have found themselves unable to re-enter the country. Several UK-Iranian families have been separated by sudden denials at border checkpoints. And unlike some of the other countries on this list, Iran isn't pretending it's temporary. Official statements describe the suspension as open-ended, pending a full reset in diplomatic relations. There's also a symbolic message here. For decades, Iran has used visa control as a soft power tool, a way to draw lines in the sand without firing a single shot. This time, the message to Britain is unambiguous. Your passport may carry weight elsewhere, but not here. Not anymore. Number 4. China. In Beijing, silence is never just silence, it's strategy. So when China quietly removed the UK from its trusted visa partnership list in early 2025, few noticed at first. But the consequences came quickly. British citizens are now blocked from applying for most long-term visas, including business, academic, and entrepreneurial entry permits. Unlike other countries on this list, China never used the word ban. But make no mistake, the door is closing. The roots of the rift go back to Hong Kong. Since 2021, Britain's offer of citizenship pathways for BNO passport holders has been a sore point for Beijing. It sees the move as meddling in its internal affairs, and an affront to its sovereignty. In 2025, the tension finally boiled over. After a series of pro-democracy conferences in London, attended by exiled Hong Kong activists, China accused the UK of actively undermining Chinese unity. The response was swift: visa suspensions, administrative delays, and national security reviews for nearly every British application. Even those already living in China are feeling the impact. Longtime British educators, consultants, and engineers are reporting unexpected permit denials and sudden requests to leave. Tech and trade professionals are especially vulnerable. Several UK-based firms with operations in Shanghai and Shenzhen are being told to replace British staff with local talent. Some of these companies are already pulling out, citing an unworkable regulatory climate. There's no official ban, just a policy of obstruction, wrapped in red tape and plausible deniability. But the message is unmistakable. If you challenge China's authority, don't expect an open invitation. Number 3. Turkey. In 2025, Turkey isn't talking about diplomacy, it's talking about jobs. Facing high inflation, a rising youth unemployment crisis, and growing frustration with foreign influence in local markets, the Turkish government has moved decisively. British citizens are now barred from applying for business visas, freelance permits, and most work-based residency programs. The ban wasn't dramatic. It came buried inside a wider immigration reform bill aimed at protecting Turkish labor and values. But make no mistake, UK nationals were specifically named in parliamentary discussions. So, what's driving this shift? It's partly economic. British entrepreneurs and remote workers, once welcomed into Istanbul's co-working hubs and coastal towns, are now viewed as competitors in a strained job market. Locals argue that these digital nomads benefit from lower costs while pricing out residents and avoiding taxes. But there's also politics at play. Turkey's president, facing a tough re-election battle, has leaned hard into nationalist messaging. He's portrayed foreign workers, particularly from Western countries, as part of a post-colonial economic invasion, rhetoric that's found strong support in rural and working-class communities. The UK's outspoken criticism of Turkey's press freedoms and human rights record hasn't helped. In response, Turkish officials have accused Britain of hypocrisy and interference. Even tourism policies are shifting. While short-term visits remain possible, there's talk of restricting multi-entry visas for UK passport holders, a move that could hit British expats with second homes along the Mediterranean coast. For now, Turkey's message is clear. Come to visit, not to stay. And if you're British, that line just got a lot harder to cross. Number 2. The Philippines. For years, the Philippines and the UK maintained a warm, stable relationship. British retirees found paradise in Cebu. Nurses and healthcare workers from the Philippines became vital in the UK's NHS. The exchange seemed mutually respectful, but 2025 changed that. This year, the Philippine government suspended all new immigration visas for British citizens, including investment visas, spousal reunifications, and long-term retirement permits. The decision shocked many, but for Filipinos at home, it had been building. The spark? A televised UK political debate that went viral across Southeast Asia. In the clip, a British MP criticized unsustainable migration from Southeast Asia and questioned the value of low-wage healthcare labor, referring, without naming, Filipino nurses. The backlash was instant. Filipino citizens, politicians, and celebrities accused the UK of degrading their dignity, erasing their contributions, and displaying outdated colonial arrogance. Respect Filipino workers began trending globally. Protests erupted outside the British Embassy in Manila. And within days, the Philippines responded. British immigration privileges were the first to go. The president, addressing the nation, said, "We do not exist to serve, we exist to thrive." Applause followed, and policies shifted. British nationals already residing in the country are safe for now, but new long-term applicants are being rejected at record speed. Local media is calling it a diplomatic reset. Others see it as a cultural stand, a refusal to be tokenized or sidelined. What's clear is this: the Philippines is drawing new lines, and for the UK, access is no longer a given. Number 1. United Arab Emirates, UAE. No country has shocked the British public more in 2025 than the UAE. Once considered a second home for British business elites, influencers, and retirees, the Emirates has now taken a bold, unexpected step: a complete freeze on new long-term visas for UK citizens, including golden visas, remote work permits, and property-linked residencies. The announcement was swift and unapologetic. It came just days after a high-profile diplomatic incident involving a UK official allegedly making undiplomatic remarks about UAE labor policies during a closed-door EU briefing. The comments were leaked and instantly sparked outrage across the Gulf. The UAE responded with forceful clarity. In a public address, a senior minister said, "We will not tolerate disrespect from nations who rely on our markets, our energy, and our hospitality." The policy shift was immediate. British nationals with pending visa applications were notified of cancellations. Real estate investors, expecting residency privileges tied to multi-million dirham properties, were told their status was no longer guaranteed. Even family reunification cases are being held for further review. For the UK's wealthy elite, it's a seismic jolt. Dubai and Abu Dhabi were safe havens, tax-free hubs for investment, lifestyle, and escape. But now, the red carpet has been rolled back. The UAE insists the freeze is not permanent, but insiders suggest it's conditional, tied to whether Britain can repair trust and reset mutual respect. Until then, the message is clear. Money may speak, but diplomacy speaks louder. And for now, the doors to the desert dream are closed. And now it's your turn. Which of these bans shocked you the most? Drop your take in the comments. We actually read them all. If you found this eye-opening, go check out our previous video. It connects all the dots behind these rising global tensions. We pour hours into researching and crafting these stories, so if you want to support us, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.